Okay guys, I'm making a new CodeSmash video because I haven't done an update in a while now. So let's see how the progress has been recently in the last couple of days. Just so you know that CodeSmash is still in development and I'll be doing updates more frequently now. When it comes to the toolbar here, you can see that I've made some changes, okay? So you've got the stacks, the apps, and the accounts now. Let's say you start using CodeSmash in order to create your own custom backend. And by the way, you can use CodeSmash regardless of whether you're a regular developer or a no-code developer, because in any case, at some point you're going to have to create a backend for your application. And as a regular developer who writes code, you're probably going to use something like a infrastructure as code framework like Terraform to set up your infrastructure, and you don't want to bother with that every time you need to, start a new project or whatever. So you're pretty much better off with using CodeSmash that's going to offer everything in a simple package, and you're going to be able to use a CLI as well. Now, if you're on the other hand, if you're a no-code developer and you're using something like Bubble or Webflow, you're going to save a lot of money on the data, because the data with the CodeSmash is going to be hosted directly on your private cloud accounts. So that's going to be AWS, as you can see here under accounts. Mm, So your cost will be minimal compared to what you're paying now for the storage of your data on both Webflow and Bubble. So in any case, let's run down through what we have now. So in any case, yeah, basically when you'll be creating your backend, you basically just need to drag and drop the items, basically these stacks, to create your own stack that you can later on reuse. And as you can clearly see, you can do this. Okay, so each of these actually represents code on the backend, and the code is going to be used to set up the services on your AWS account. If we compare CodeSmash to alternatives like Supabase, like Backendless or Zeno, when you set up your backend with them, you have a lock-in, because once you cancel the subscription, that's pretty much it. You cannot change your system anymore. The only way you can do it is through pretty much through their UI. The difference with the CodeSmash is that these stacks that you can see here, uh, they are actually backed by Terraform, which is, like I said, an infrastructure as code framework, and that's going to be stored directly on your private cloud account. So there's going to be absolutely no lock-in, which means that any developer can easily use Terraform, even if you unsubscribe from CodeSmash. So here's the thing: if you want to set up, let's say, a custom backend to store some data, right? So some usernames, whatever, article names and prices and so on, you would probably want to create an API, right? So for that case, you could use a REST API or a GraphQL API, and on AWS, AppSync is basically their managed GraphQL service. So if you want to set the name here, you can go and let's have a look. Set it to my API. You can of course set the key, the schema, and the data source later on. So as you can clearly see here, the inputs here are going to represent something that your service is going to use to set up the values which are needed to set up the service. For example, like I said, the name. Once the system has actually been deployed, your API has been deployed, in side here in the outputs, you will actually have the ID of your API and the URL. So once this has been deployed, you get URL back and you can instantly use it. Well, one more thing that we need is obviously a database, and you can quite easily create a database with the same name. You can just give it a name like my database. And now the only thing that's left to do is basically to tell the API to get the data from the database. And we can do this in a very simple way by just telling it that the output, once this database is created, the name of this table is going to be the data source. So the data source knows exactly where to look. And yeah, it goes without saying that, for example, if you need to do some computation in order to get some data, you can also use a serverless function, which is AWS Lambda, which you're only going to get charged for using it. You will not get charged simply if it's deployed. Let's call this my Lambda. And as you can see, you can have multiple inputs for your API. So currently, as soon as you deploy this, you're going to have your system set up. But it's going to be set up in a very specific way. With other services like I mentioned previously, Zeno and Backendless, they pretty much set up everything directly. While CodeSmash is going to actually give you the code, the actual Terraform code, and set up a build pipeline that's going to actually build the system for you. So again, if you unsubscribe from CodeSmash, you are still left with everything on your system, on your AWS account, and you have complete access to it because it's your account. And you can still change the code to modify everything to fit your needs. So once you have this, now we have to transform this, basically promote this into an application. And as you can clearly see here, we have apps that are set up here. So the next step is going to be, there's going to be a button here that's just going to say, probably it's going to say promote to an app, and you're going to have a new item here. From here, you will just be able to access it and click build. Once it's built, you will have your custom backend ready to use. So no more actual, you will not need to actually do any manual work on AWS or write code in order to set up your systems. So you will be able to save this stack, right, and reuse it on multiple projects, and your stacks will be saved here. Before you actually start doing anything, you will need to add your AWS account. So that means that just so you know that signing up for an AWS account is as simple as signing up for, I don't know, Webflow or Bubble, so there's no issue there. So as you can clearly see, you'll be able to access a new cloud account here. The only thing you need to add is the name and the passwords for your account, and CodeSmash will be able to set up everything for you. You will also see the stacks here. You got the apps here. Okay, I'm still using the same pop-up for this. You can change the stack name, right? So let's call it my awesome stack, and as you can see, it's right here, and once you save it, it's going to be ready for you here. And like I said, you can create multiple build systems from this stack. You'll be able to add parameters in the build system so you know exactly, so you can reuse it in multiple instances. For example, let's say you have multiple clients, right? But what you need is an API for, a custom backend for each of your clients. Well, the thing is, you can just create one stack like this and use parameters here, and inside the build system, define your parameters, build a stack on multiple AWS accounts, and give one account to every single one of your clients. So that's going to make your life much easier. And the cool part is that as soon as you make changes to the code in your stack, it's going to propagate to every single one of your deployed systems. So it's going to keep your code that you don't necessarily have to write, like I said, because CodeSmash is going to take care of that. It's going to keep it in sync with your deployed infrastructure. So what I've been working on recently is, something that still needs to be done is, once we have this, right, we somehow need to take this data and make sure that it actually gets deployed on your AWS account. Because here's the thing, it's not going to be hosted on CodeSmash, right? Because if you were to, unsubscribe from CodeSmash, you would not have access to it anymore, right? So it's going to run on your private account where you will have full access, and you will have access, and you will be able to see the billing for yourself and see how much your data costs you. I'm actually going to show how much I'm paying for my AWS account in the next video. So let's have a look at what I've been doing recently. Let's go to the console quickly. Okay, let's just try to click here, save. And as you can see here, we got a JSON file. So that's what I've been working on recently. So this here has been converted into a JSON file. Let's just quickly have a look at what it looks like. Let's format this quickly. Okay, so let's run down this system quickly. Okay, so your custom stack that you've just built here has been converted into a JSON representation. And as you can clearly see, the name is my awesome stack, which has been picked up from here. This stack contains items, and there are 3 items here, right? So 3 stacks. And as you can see, we have 3 items here, right? So the name of this stack, basically the ID, is a user API, and you can clearly see it's a user API here. This one is called UserDB, right? So this one represents your database, and you can see it here. It has taken the value. The value for your table, actual table in AWS, where you're going to be saving the data, is MyDB, which, as you can see, has been picked up from here. The same goes for the user lambda, right? That's the last item here. Yep, the data has been correctly picked up. Okay, what else? Actually, the most important part, we somehow have to transform these references, right? The references that tell the API where to connect and get the data from, right? From this database and from this serverless Lambda function. So this is how we're going to do it. As you can clearly see, we have 2 references on this data source field. And you can see that it actually says here stack.userdb.tablename. And it's inside these double curly brackets. So why is this the case? Well, this is actually a reference. And this data is going to be sent to the backend where it's going to get interpolated. And the way it's going to be interpolated basically is what you're referencing to. In this case, you're referencing the current stack. So this is going to be the syntax, right? The stack represents this whole stack. So you then use the dot notation, and the second part of this line represents one of these items, right? One of these tags. Obviously, if you use this ID, it's going to be UserDB. And then you're going to, with the third part, you're going to reference the output field, right? And as you can clearly see, the outputs are here. It's called a table name. So like I said previously, once this here service gets deployed, right, you're actually going to have an AWS DynamoDB database on your account. So what you need is basically the full identifier of this AWS DynamoDB, which you will get through this here field, which you just have to reference like this. And on the back end, CodeSmash is going to pick up the value from here and place it here. The same thing goes for the Lambda. In this case, you need an ARN, which is an identifier, and it's going to pick this up and transform this whole field, basically interpolate it into the function ARN. So now that we have this, just want to mention that you're probably not going to want to use it like this. This is just to showcase how it's working, because the data source, as you can clearly see here, it's just a string of values. So this would actually add two items here, which wouldn't make sense. So if you want to have two items, you're probably going to want to have them as an array. So we can try this here inside this array. So let's quickly remove this, clear all lines, and do the same thing and put it here to demonstrate how CodeSmash is going to convert this. Save. Okay. So we've now, yeah, here you go. Let's quickly go here. Let's format the document. And yeah, as you can clearly see, CodeSmash understands that it's now an array, and if you have two items, it's going to create an array and add two items individually like this. So it understands how to use this. And now, why is this important? Well, for two reasons. First reason is that we need to get this data to the backend and then start the build process to set up your services. The second reason is that regular developers are probably not going to want to use the UI. They will use the CLI, right? So what are you going to write as a regular developer? You're going to have a CLI, and you're going to write something like CodeSmash deploy my file .yaml, right? Once you write that in the command line and you reference this file, it's going to build your system. It's as simple as that. But as you can clearly see here, JSON is an unwieldy format and no one wants to write all of this, so it's much better to use YAML. So what I'm going to do actually is allow people to write this in YAML format. Then I'm going to go and transform that into the actual infrastructure on AWS. Oh, and one more thing. So basically, one of the most important differences between CodeSmash and other similar services is that you actually create stuff on your own account. With other services, you create them on their account, right? So once you unsubscribe from, you cancel your subscription, you don't have access to these systems anymore. That's a big problem. With CodeSmash, you're still going to have access to them, so there's going to be absolutely no lock-in. So let's have a look quickly. I already have a Lambda that's prepared that's going to be converting this JSON to YAML, right? So inside the save stack, right? So basically, once you want to save your stack and create some kind of store, just so you know, the config file, which represents this here, is going to be stored in your Git repositories, again, on your cloud account. So you have full access to it. But it needs to be converted into YAML, which is something that's readable to developers. The question now is, how do we get this onto the backend? So it's going to be converted on the front end, I mean from the UI to JSON, and then we send the JSON to the backend. As you can clearly see, this Lambda has been prepared, so that's what I've been working on recently. We've got the arguments here. we're going to be sending a couple of parameters here, like the username, the account to where we're saving, the repository, the branch, and the config itself, right? So yeah, the config is here. We are going to parse this config, which is basically a string, into a JSON object, and from a JSON object we're going to stringify it as a YAML, and we are going to print it out here just so that we see that we actually are, we've done a good job. Okay, so let's have a look, because this is actually working. So let's quickly have a look. But before we do that, we need to we need to escape the JSON in order for this to work. So let me just do this quickly. So escape JSON. Okay, it's been escaped, copied. So let's just test the lambda quickly. There you go, test. Okay, okay, and it's done. So let's have a look. Yeah, that's all that we need, and as you can clearly see here, it has been generated. Let's just quickly copy this thing. Okay, we got it here. And let's go back, paste it in here so you can see. Okay, there you go. This is this is much better now. So this is something that anyone can write. A developer is going to just have a really simple time using this, and just be able to write the config file. No need to do anything on AWS or even use the UI. I think. Oh, and one more thing that I've been working on. Let me just quickly have a look. Yeah. So okay. So the next thing that I'm actually going to do, there's already a feature to add accounts on the backend. So that's working. The next thing that I have to do is how to save this config into the repository on the AWS account. That's going to be next. Once that's done, it's time to set up the build system, which is already working in a way, but it's not complete yet. So once that's done, the MVP is complete, right? And you will then literally be able to, create your own custom backends, save the templates, and just run them wherever you want on any account you want, and you will save, the cost savings will be immense compared to just using either, Bubbles or Webflow's backend systems that come with the subscription. In any case, that's going to be out soon, so that's fine. But what I've been doing recently also is the login screen. So we still don't have the login screen. We just have this designer so you can see how it's working, just to play around. This is basically the playground, but the login pop-up is also going to be here. Let me just quickly demonstrate. Let's say you want to sign in, right? And there you go, the pop-up is here. So that's also working, and the only thing is that it still hasn't been released. The changes still aren't released, so I'm going to do this probably end of this week, I hope so, and then you'll be able to finally register and play around with the new changes. And then after that, the next release, then we are going to start adding your accounts. You'll be able to start adding your accounts, saving your templates that you designed by yourself, right? And then finally the build system where you will be able to deploy your service. So for the next video, I'm probably going to go and talk about why you should use CodeSmash compared to other alternatives, and why you're going to save a lot of money by using a custom backend rather than using what Webflow and Bubble are offering. So I think that's pretty much it for now. I'm going to keep updating you guys more frequently than I used to, and yeah, that's pretty much it for now, guys. So thanks a lot for taking your time to watch the video today. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll talk to you next time.